This small seaside town outside Boston, Massachusetts, is one of my favorite places to write. It's so peaceful here on the shore. I came here several times while I was working on my article, The Shattered Sky. The story is about a terrible explosion that happened 100 years ago in the midst of World War I. The year was 1917. The world was at war. This war was fought in the trenches of France, Germany, and Italy. It was fought in the skies over England, and it was fought on the seas. During World War I, Halifax became an important port in Nova Scotia, Canada. A steady stream of ships passed through the harbor every day, carrying troops, weapons, and supplies from the United States and Canada across the Atlantic Ocean to Europe. Then, on the morning of December 6, 1917, tragedy struck. Two ships collided in Halifax Harbor, triggering a massive explosion larger than any the world had ever known. Only nuclear bombs have had more power. Some 2,000 people died in the blast. Thousands more were injured. Entire neighborhoods were wiped off the map. A century later, the 1917 explosion in Halifax Harbor is an important part of North American history. Yet it is still not widely known in the United States. I wanted to help change that by writing a narrative nonfiction article for Scope. Narrative nonfiction is informational, but it does more than just convey facts. Narrative nonfiction also uses powerful storytelling techniques like suspense, vivid sensory details, mood, and characters you care about. In my article, I wanted to help you imagine what it was like to live through that terrible day. But to meet that goal, I would need to immerse myself in the world of 1917 Halifax. So I hopped on a plane and flew to Canada. My first stop was the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic, where I explored a special exhibit. I was struck by the before and after photographs of Richmond, the neighborhood in Halifax that was hardest hit by the blast. I decided I wanted to write my story from the point of view of a kid who was living in this neighborhood. At the Dartmouth Heritage Museum, I got a private tour from Liam Caswell, who was dressed in period attire. Liam gave me some key details about the explosion, the blinding light, how glass from shattered windows flew through the air, the way the ground shook many miles away. Next, I met a special woman named Janet Kitts, a famous local author. Janet has written the stories of many survivors, and she sent me to the Nova Scotia archives, where she donated her interviews. That is where I found the story of Noble Driscoll, a 13-year-old with an amazing survival story. I decided to put him at the center of my article. When I returned from Halifax, I had my work cut out for me. I pored over my notes. I combed through these books. I studied primary documents. I explored a website put together by historian and writer Janet Mabey, which helped me understand the complicated timeline of the explosion and the aftermath. As I hunkered down in my writing nook, I spent a lot of time thinking about my trip, about how being in Halifax helped me travel back in time in my imagination to that terrible day in 1917. Writing about such a devastating event was a challenge for me, to think about all the people who died, who lost loved ones, the destruction of so many homes and businesses. But I also felt honored to bring you the story of Noble Driscoll and to make sure that this important event from history is not forgotten.